Hello, friends. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper. And tonight we're doing our post-apocalyptic fiction book club. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Gosh, it's been a hectic day. I guess I need to take my coat off. It's this color over here. It looks kind of funky. I had to change from a long sleeve shirt into a short sleeve shirt. Today was injection day. Tomorrow I go to pain management for more injections. This is pincushion week of the month. That's what I feel like. So I was trying to stay a little bit warm with the jacket on inside and with the short sleeve shirt on. I wear the short sleeve shirt so that they can, get in and do the injections in the back of my arms and all that kinds of stuff. A lot easier than a long sleeve shirt where I have to take the shirt off. But welcome, South Florida DCO. Welcome, Diana 2, Little Lone Prepper, KP Heathen. Look at all these fantastic, phenomenal people. Listen, let me see if I still have it here. I hope I do. No, I don't. I'm going to put a link up here real quick. So Tool Man Tim, I don't know if any of you follow him. He's out of Canada. Really great guy. We've interviewed each other on our channels. He's the one who turned me on to Pride G and Pride D, which is another form of stabile, but it's basically out of Canada. And but anyhow, it not only preserves fuel, but it can restore fuel. So it's just really, really great item that he turned me on. Okay, so let's stop this. I got to go through the commercial, I guess, first. And 4, 3, 1. Yep. Okay. Okay, here we go. So I want to give you this. This was an interview that Toolman Tim did on a live stream earlier this evening from 6 to 7. And so I watched that. Really great interview. I forwarded it out to all of my subscribers. Just a fantastic interview with Franklin Horton. Now remember, Franklin Horton, we're doing his book 3, Legion of Despair, for our fiction book club, and that's going to be on Thursday, December 28th, that we'll be reviewing that book. So we've done 1 and 2. We're going to do book 3 on December 28th. As of right now, there's 10 books in that series. So, we kind of, we've got book 11, book 12 is coming up with A American in his series, and the Survivalist series. And then we're working on, simultaneous with that, we're doing Franklin Horton's series, which is the Forgotten World, I believe it is. Borrowed World series. But he was talking this evening in that autobiography that basically the Borrowed World series, he is the character Jim. And these are the things he imagined as he went from his home in far western tip of Virginia to the state capitol. He was actually working for mental health and mental retardation and how they thought they would make it back and all this kinds of stuff. So it's a combination of reality and post-apocalyptic fiction. So really great series. Strongly recommend it. Hello, Holly Ivans. Hello, Diana 2. Cats and Prepping. Creative Redundancy. Little Lone Prepper. Fantastic. Great to see you. Keith Hall. I'm up to no good, just the normal old me, just out there mucking rucking the making the ruck, mucking the ruck, whatever, stirring up the stirring the stink. How's that? Second Star Survival. Hello and welcome. Okay, so tonight we're continuing on with our nonfiction book club, and this is every Tuesday night. So Second Star Survival, that's quite all right. Hope you get something out of it. So we're going to continue on with our nuclear war survival skills. Fantastic book by Crescent Kearney. And I will tell you, I enjoy this book like you would not believe. Please add this to your library. There will be a link in the show notes at the end of this. And if you don't have a copy, get a copy. It's going to be extremely worthy. Tab it, highlight it, read it. Let it be your nuclear war survival tome, if you will. So tonight we're doing chapters 12 and 13. Chapter 12 is Shelter, Sanitation, and Preventive Medicine. Notice that that's 3 syllables, preventive not 4 syllables, preventative. Preventive comes from the verb prevent, and preventative comes from the verb preventate. I've never heard of the verb preventate. So preventive medicine. Then chapter 13 is surviving without doctors. So a lot of the stuff that you need to know. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and give you some ideas about things to do there as well. Okay, so can everybody hear me? I've got my mic a little bit higher than normal, and I hope that hope it's coming across good. Hello, Theoxorus, welcome. So I hope that is it better than normal, about the same as normal, not as good as normal? Let me know where we are as far as you being able to hear relative to the new mic position. Good volume, creative redundancy says, thank you. Okay, so let me get my reading glasses on. Let's talk about chapter 12, shelter, sanitation, preventive medicine. So the first thing they come up with is disposal of human waste. And so I strongly recommend there is an item on Amazon called a luggable loo, and I'll add that link in the show notes tomorrow morning. But the luggable loo is a porta potty, basically, on a 5-gallon jug basis, and it's got a little seat and everything else. The problem with the luggable loo in a survival situation inside confined space is you want to seal it every time you use it rather than leaving it open with the seat on top of it. So you do want to have something that has a cover where you can cover it. You don't want that odor coming out like all get out. Now, Emergency Essentials also has an equivalent to the luggable loo, as does Rainy Day Foods. So I bought 2 of them from Rainy Day Foods, and I bought 1 from Amazon because I want to separate. I'm going to have one that's primarily for urine, and the other one's going to be primarily for solid, for fecal matter. Then you can get the disposable bags, the hazardous biohazard waste bags from Rainy Day Foods as well. They also have something that they call EcoGel. And so it's designed for a 5-gallon tub. And what you do is you just rip it open, pour the powder on top of the fecal matter, and that helps control some of the odor. The book gives you on page 104, I think it is. Let me check here. Yeah, on page 104, they start talking about how you can drill a hole into the bucket and have a tube going to the outside so that you can exhaust off some of those fumes. I am prevent it. Instead of exhausting it and having another source of possible interior bringing radioactive fallout into your shelter, I would much rather just try to contain the odor inside the bag. So number 1, get a 5-gallon jug bag bucket, get a heavy-duty trash bag, okay, tall trash bag, put it inside there. And I would actually, if you're going to do it for fecal matter especially, I would double bag it. And then that way, every time you use it, you can basically seal it up so that you're not getting too much of that odor coming into your limited area of your shelter. But if you take these EcoGels or something like it and pour it down in there, then that's going to help as well. If you look at my last haul video, when I do every once in a while, and I probably got maybe 4 or 5 boxes of it by now, I like to pick up the box of add this to your septic tank stuff that helps decompose fecal matter. And so I like to think that I'll just take a teaspoon of that and add it to a 5-gallon bucket. And that will help with the decomposition of the manure, the human fecal matter that's in that bucket. I did get a book. I haven't started reading it yet, and it's called Humanure, Humanure, but it's basically how to turn human manure into compost, and that's part of that process so that you can use it. Hello, Texas Redleg. Hello, Lori J. Creative Redundancy. I think I already said hello to, but if I didn't, hello. And yeah, there we go. Yeah, basically Riddex. You're absolutely right, let alone prepper. And so, you want to try to compost as much of that as possible. Odor control becomes essential in confined spaces. I can't tell you, we exude body odors. And I was most of my time when I was in a tactical unit, I was in either an S280 shelter, which is mounted on the back of a 5-ton truck, or I was in an M2902 expandable command truck. And basically what that is that's a S280 shelter with movable walls so that they come out and it doubles the size. You've got 6 hot, sweaty soldiers who haven't had a shower in a week and a half and haven't changed clothes in a week in that same shelter. And this is a little bit bigger than the typical fallout shelter. And it gets funky. And let me tell you something, that can be a morale lowering agent when you have to be around other funky people. Now, one of the things I will say is you get to that point to where your funk is so bad that you don't smell the other funk. And of course, it all becomes relative as you get into the showers and everything else. We're going to try to be right at an hour this evening, Lori J. So yeah, welcome back if you get a chance. Yes, composting porta potties are fantastic. If you can get one, and usually you can get a composting porta potty at an RV distributor because they use those in their RVs. And so, yeah, and that uses the same blue water. You add some chemicals to the water, you go down into it, then that water kind of recirculates. Now, one of the things you do have to be careful with on a composting toilet is you have to make sure you use that more composting toilet paper than normal toilet paper. So, and that's but that brings up another great topic. So thank you for broaching that about the composting toilet. And that is, if you're going to use normal toilet paper, have another bag where after you use your toilet paper, you can throw your toilet paper into that bag. You're going to let that dry because that is now going to become, if you're going to burn your waste, that's going to become part of your heat source to burn, to get up to temperature where you're going to burn the other stuff. In the military, when we had slit trenches and stuff like that, we had 55-gallon drums, we would basically burn it with diesel. They're finding out, however, that the combination of burning fecal matter and diesel, when you breathe it too much, it can cause some serious lung damage. So you have to be careful about that as well. Let me catch up on chat here. Actually put a new upload while playing with it. All right. So I'm jealous. Somebody's learning how to edit, and I'm still trying to learn. Absolutely. So Phioxerus is kind of in agreement with what he does or she does. Keep a small bucket of lime for a loo setup. So lime is a great caustic agent that will help with that decomposition. My grandmother had a 2-hole outdoor, and so we had a bucket of lime, and you would take a basically just a little bit like a quarter of a cup of lime, and you'd throw it on that, because it was on the side of a hill going down into a creek. And so it's probably about 8 feet down is where that all coagulated down at the bottom of that drop. And you drop about a quarter cup of lime down on top when you went to the bathroom. Yeah, and absolutely, absolutely. I can't imagine I have, but you're still contained inside that 5-gallon bucket. However, even that kind of scares me. That's why I say double bag. And, that way you're a little bit safer. If you can, save one of those bags, save the outside bag when you go outside to dump it, and then you can use that outside bag as your new inside bag and put a new outside bag on it. So one of the things they talk about is dumping your waste. And so let me see here. They're talking about disposing. Where is that? And the amount of, I know where it is. It's back here a little bit further. They're talking about your exposure to radioactivity as you're out disposing of you want to take that stuff outside your shelter whenever possible and dump it. So let's say it takes you 15 seconds exposure to radioactivity. while you take that bag out and toss it away from your shelter. So you and it's still at 100 rads an hour. So you're at 1/4 of 1/60th of an hour. So that's 1/240th of 100 rads. So that's right at about 1/4 of a rad that you're going to receive for that time that you're outside disposing of that. And so that's nothing to really be worried about. And 400 rads would be at the very early stages of it, fairly close to ground zero. So, don't worry about if you're trying to throw that stuff out. Just get rid of it. Once it gets full, get it out of the shelter, and try to get it away as far away from the entrance as you possibly can without exposing yourself too much to the radioactivity or the fallout. Another thing they talk about is the importance of privacy. And so they take a blanket and wrap it around where they have their luggable loo in the shelter so that you get a little bit of a sense of privacy. That's one thing we didn't have in the early Army days in the barracks. We did not have privacy. Showers, toilets, there was no privacy whatsoever. I understand nowadays it's a little bit better. An interesting thing, the NCO, the bachelor NCO quarters, when I was at 1st Ops Battalion, Field Station Augsburg, and this was back in the late 70s. So 1st Ops Battalion had 2 buildings, 2 of these World War II German Nazi barracks. And so all the males, all the lower enlisted males were in building 1 on 1st, 2nd, 3rd floors. And then the 4th floor was for TDY people who came in for temporary duty. And that was just one big open bay. Then in building 155, so I was building 154. I was in building 155. So the senior NCOs were on the 1st floor. And then we had the female soldiers on the 2nd and 3rd floors. And they figured that, that we would protect them from the other riffraff. And so I was taking a shower one morning on the 1st floor and shampooing my hair. And of course, there's no privacy. And I'm standing there. I had my back to the wall with the shower coming down, shampooing my hair. And I got the shampoo out and I looked, and there was this young female soldier taking a shower next to me and just totally caught me off guard. And she says, "Sorry, Sergeant. All the showers upstairs are being used, and I didn't want to be late for work." And I go, "Okay, get out of here." But that was shocking. Okay, disposal of dead bodies. I would strongly recommend that you invest in a body bag, and they are hermetically sealed so that if you do have somebody who passes away, you can put them inside the body bag and keep that decomposing body odor away from the rest of the group. And this is pretty thick mylar plastic in the body bag. Another advantage to having a body bag is that it does have the 6 handles. So you can use some sort of a stiffening agent, like maybe a piece of plywood or something like that, or some boards, and you can use it as a makeshift stretcher. So having a body bag is going to be important. Number 1, to use as a stretcher if necessary, and number 2, to use it for its intended purpose. So I strongly recommend that everybody invest in a little bit of money into a body bag. They do have them on Amazon. I'm going to take notes here. Stuff I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put in the notes so that I don't forget something. Where is my, oh, there it is. Okay, so we said number 1, I'm going to do luggable loo. And then I'm going to do body bag. Okay. So you do want to, get rid of those bodies. Wow, I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that, Theaxorus. That's great information to have. I have heard, and then I'm going to use a little bit of Lee rationale, and we'll see how this works. I have heard that as long as you had those, like on a ship, you have that vent that comes up and it curves over so that the opening is down at the bottom. so that nothing falls, rain or anything else does not fall into the air intake. That those are relatively safe. Here in Central Texas, we get windstorms, dust storms like you would not believe. I am afraid that with one of those tubes like that blowing that radioactive fallout, which is at ground level, and stirring it up might cause it to push it up into that tube and into my fallout shelter. So I would want to make sure that I do have some sort of a filtration system on that, so that just in case there is a wind gust that blows up that stuff and blows it into my hooded system, that I had a way of protecting against that fallout coming down inside the shelter. Are we talking about biogas masks? So one of the things if we are, one of the things that most people aren't aware of is that the filters in a gas mask have a very limited lifespan. So number one, they do have reactive agents in them to protect you from biohazards, chemical hazards, etc., and radioactive and nuclear hazards. However, once you start sucking, it's kind of like a water filter. Once you start sucking in that bad air and it's removing the bad stuff, that bad stuff gets caught up in the filter. So all of a sudden it gets very, very difficult. You have to really suck hard to get the air through that area that is now dirtied with all that bad filter. So one of the things we had to do in the Army, and this was with the old gas mask that had the cheek masks or the cheek filters, was we had to learn how to change filters about every 4 to 6 hours in a contaminated area, was what we were doing. The newer 10 millimeter screw-on filters are so much better, because all you have to do is reach up, unscrew it, put a new one on, screw it on, and you're good to go. And whereas with the old ones, we had to basically rip it open, pull it out, put the new one in, put it in, not breathe while you're doing that, so you aren't sucking in any bad air through that port. It was terrible. But anyhow, so if you have a HEPA filter on your air intake system in your shelter, that should protect you. And most of those are going to be designed where you probably only have to change the filter about every month rather than every 4 to 6 hours like you do with a gas mask. Just different filtration systems and capabilities. Incinerating toilet would be fantastic, phenomenal, outstanding in a normal survival scenario. If we're talking about inside a shelter, I would not want to have anything that's going to consume any of my precious and valuable oxygen. And of course, anytime you have a light, anything that's burning, it's going to consume your oxygen. You'd also, that would be a double reason to have it close to your exhaust port, is because you got the obnoxious odors of the toilet, plus you have the odors from the burning or the possibility of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide byproducts from the combustion. So you want to get that out as well. So that two reasons to have it as close as possible to your export or your exhaust port. There we go. Absolutely. That's another good solution. Absolutely. Kitty litter. I have a couple packages of kitty litter out in the garage. And I was thinking just the exact same thing. I have heard you can do the same thing with sawdust. It's not the most effective, but that can work. So I've heard people doing that. Wow. They're in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken, not too far from where I retired from, Fort Huachuca. Yeah, I've heard wood chips, sawdust, same thing. Let me see. I'll have a link, and for you can get them on Amazon. I'll have a link for the one that I have in the. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can't find it here. We can go to Amazon, your purchases. Returns and orders. Orders, search results. Oh, I've got to sign in. I was late coming on by a minute because every once in a while I'll get on here and try to get on, and it'll say that it can't find my camera. And so when it can't find my camera, I have to restart my computer in order for it to attach to the camera. So body bag, search orders. Okay, it was ordered on January 20th, 2022, and here we are. That's a Primacare. Okay, so let me go back over here to StreamYard, and we will share, present, share screen, Amazon Primacare BB 3201. Okay, so there you go. So the last time I bought this was January 20th, 2022. And this is the Primacare BB 3201 body bag stretcher combo with 8 side handles. So this is what I'll put the link for in the show notes for tomorrow. Okay. Back we go. Okay. Yeah, everything's Amazon's. You know, we're just going to make Jeff Bezos the richest guy on earth. I read something, and it was talking about submarine warfare. And I read that one of the things about Japanese is that the native Japanese, those who are 100% Japanese, do not have the, I guess it's a genetic thing, a gene, where their body produces body odor. And so one of the things they did in the Navy, because there had been so much intermarriage into Japan, Korea, China, things like that, they would put people under stressful conditions, heavy exercise and everything else for a week. Then they would have a sniffer go through and smell and see who was 100% Japanese. And you had to pass that sniff test in order to be put into service on the submarines in the Japanese naval forces in World War II. Don't know the veracity of this. This was on the History Channel, but you know that's what they said. So you know, I'm not going to say that that's 100% true or anything else. I'm just going to say that's what I heard on the History Channel. So Prigi, I will add that Prigi, and then they have Pri. So Pri, and then it's G for gasoline and D for diesel. So they also have one that's made for diesel. I'll put both of those on there tomorrow. Thank you, David. What kind of list am I going to be putting if I order a body bag from Amazon? Good question. Kenneth Allen McDuff list. How's that? If you know who he is. When I worked for the electric co-op, one of our offices was only about 2 blocks away from where Kenneth Allen McDuff grew up. Probably the only person to have been put on death row twice that I'm aware of. He was put on death row once, and then they did away with the death penalty, and they commuted it to a life sentence, and he got off on parole. He went out and did the same serial murders again, got put on death row again, and was finally executed. So he's one of our Texas famous people, is Kenneth Allen McDuff, if you want to look that up. All right, great. Thank you for sharing that. So Theoxera says that if you get the wood pellets, that they break down into sawdust when they get wet. So I do have the wood pellets, but I don't have them for that purpose. I have the wood pellets because I have the 35-gallon trash cans in the backyard, And so what I do is I bought two of them are filled with charcoal, and then two of them are filled with that expensive firewood you get at the gas stations and stuff like that. And then there was all this space that was being lost because those chunks of firewood, you put those big ones in. And so I wanted to fill up the blank space around them. So I got a whole bunch of the wood pellets to fill up that space, that airspace in between all those pieces of wood, so that I could have a whole bunch of stuff I can burn in the backyard to cook after SHTF. We are probably on a list. FBI probably watches us, if not some Karen, there's some Karen who is concerned about what we're talking about somewhere, and probably having a leftist loony raging fit right now that we're talking about what we are. So, and Keith Hall, welcome, by the way, says that they used it in the barn to cover cow manure. So we would take my uncle's farm. What we'd do is we'd take the cow manure in these big shovels, throw it out, and then we had this big pile right outside the milking barn. And then we'd throw that big pile of cow manure onto the manure spreader, and we'd take it out into the fields and spread manure. I got a really good cow manure story. The Germans still use human fecal matter as manure, as fertilizer, and so it goes through a process. They filter it and everything else, and then they put it on their fields right before the first snowfall. And so then when the snow starts to melt, it goes down into the earth. And so we were at the Rossfeld, which was in Berchtesgaden, the U.S. Army Recreation Center, Berchtesgaden. We were skiing the Rossfeld, and it was in April, and the snow was starting to melt. Came down off this 5-kilometer long run, came down, hit this. I thought it was ice, but it wasn't. It was water, and where it had already started melting, and hit that water and just poof, face first into this patch of melted water and human waste that was getting ready to go down into the grass. I had to throw away that ski suit. There was no way we'd ever get it cleaned up. That was a terrible experience. But the Germans still use human manure as a fertilizer on a lot of their sites there in Europe, in Germany. Okay. So clean water and food, of course, is going to be important to you. They talk about that a little bit. Controlling insects. Make sure you have plenty of both insect repellent for you. And I probably I got to make a note for myself. I need to get more insect repellent and some more insecticide. My next haul video. Okay, yeah. Then make sure that you have your personal hygiene items that are necessary: toothbrushes, toothpaste, things that make you feel comfortable. You might want to check into getting some antifungals, for crotch itch, for jock itch, for your feet. What's that called when your feet? Athlete's foot. Thank you. Athlete's foot, things like that. And that's going to also help with controlling body odor. You can get those wipes, and I have the wipes, the hospital wipes they use to wipe you down, basically a bath in bed when you're confined to bed, and I've got those on a monthly restock order. So I get one package of those every month on the 2nd of the month from Amazon. So that's just one of those monthly things that we have going on. So, think about things like that. What are you going to do to stay comfortable if you have to stay inside in a confined area with other people for 2 weeks? Breath mints, butterscotch lifesavers, wintergreen lifesavers, and things like that. But, when you get too much sugar in your mouth, you've got decay in your teeth as well. So make sure you take good care of your teeth. Okay. And then respiratory diseases, make sure that you have things that are going to protect you. If one person comes down with, let's say, a communicable respiratory disease, you don't want them coughing all over everybody else. So you don't want something that's going to be able to set them aside, whether that be, and I just happen to have one out because I've been coughing up a storm, and I go to the doctor tomorrow morning, so I got one out so I can wear it to the hospital tomorrow morning. But having these in your shelter to help control, it's not going to totally prevent. I'm not one of those that thinks that it's 100% safe, but I will say that it will help control and mitigate a lot of the airborne pathogens that you don't want going around. Okay, chapter 13, surviving without doctors. Let me catch up on here. Oh, make me jealous. Our closest river is about a mile away. And I also get the no rinse required shampoo. So those are two things I get on a normal basis. We tried the baby wipes, and they just we had a case where we had somebody that we were taking care of, and they didn't hold up as well as the more expensive hospital grade. So that just you when you learn some things through experience, and so I this is personal preference of mine to go with the hospital grade. Okay, surviving without doctors. Temporary return to self-help. So learn as much as you can now. Get all of Dr. Alton's books. He's got 3 out. He's got the first aid book. He's got the um, bacteria book, and how to use antibacterials. And then he's got the he and his wife Amy put together that one on making your home into basically a hospital. I forget the name of it, but 3 real good books by Dr. Alton, MD. Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy is, and I think that's the name of their YouTube channel as well. Get all 3 of those. There's another real good book, and that's called Surviving with where there is no doctor, and that will help you. The Special Forces First Aid book is phenomenal at identifying diseases, treatments. It's basically going to turn that's what they use, and basically a Special Forces medic is a physician's assistant. Know how to treat wounds, infected wounds, how to take care of infected wounds. Learn how to treat pieces of glass that are deeply embedded. Now, remember, when we're talking about a nuclear explosion, there's going to be a blast effect. So there's 3 things you got to worry about. Number 1, you got to worry about burns. So make sure you learn first aid for burns. There's going to be this concussion that's going to take objects and hurl them at you. So when they hurl an object at you, if it's small enough, if it's shards of glass or pieces of metal or pieces of wood, that's going to be penetrating your body. So you're going to have all kinds of puncture wounds. Then, of course, the third one is it's going to have that concussive effect as well. So it's like taking your body and slamming it up against the wall. So you're going to have broken bones. So the 3 main things I want you to consider getting a lot of good first aid training on: treatment of burns, treatment of puncture wounds, and controlling bleeding and things like that. And then number 3, treatment of broken bones and concussive effects or blunt trauma. And so a lot of abrasions and contusions as a result of that. 1 second here. Let me do a little bit of first aid on myself. Okay. Then, of course, learn how to control shock and treat for shock. So Keith Hall says that witch hazel is good for crotch rot and for sponge baths. I've never tried that, but that's worth taking a look into. Theoxorus agrees that where there is no doctor, where there is no dentist are pretty good references. Absolutely. And so, you've got to plan for that ahead of time. And there are all kinds of alternatives to the methods that we commonly use, and I would recommend that you take a look at that as well. Um, Study a little bit up on heat stroke. Well, let's just call it heat injuries, okay? And those effects, especially dehydration. We're going to have a hydration problem in a post-apocalyptic world. You can also become dehydrated in a cold environment, so make sure you study about on dehydration there. Well, childbirth, toothaches are things that they recommend that you learn how to take care of. There's a whole page and a half, I believe. Let me get here on how to treat radiation sickness. No, I'm sorry. It's 2, 3, 4, 4.5 pages basically on radiation sickness, treating radiation. Well, and of course, this is surviving nuclear war. So a lot of information on radiation sickness. Talks about the efficacy of potassium iodide. And, so for example, for Helen and I, we are at that age to where the thyroid cancer that potassium iodide can prevent, and the time period in which it actually settles in will be beyond our life expectancy. So for the two of us, it's probably not going to be that great of a prophylactic to prevent thyroid cancer as it will be for a lot of you younger folks. So let me see here. I would probably get a tetanus booster. Yeah, make sure you're up to date on all your vaccinations. And, I would say make sure you're up to date with your dental care. Make sure you're up to date with all your dental vaccinations. Tetanus is going to be extremely important. I agree, as will some of the other communicable diseases. Gosh, we had to run the gamut in the Army, and especially when we deployed overseas. And, deploying to the Middle East, God, we got some terrible shots. Yellow fever and things like that. And some of those were some hellacious injections, I tell you. And then what we'd do is we'd strip off our blouse, which is what you call a military shirt, and then we'd hold our sleeves up, and you'd walk down this line, and they had medics with basically these big cotton swabs full of alcohol, and they just drench your arm. And then they had these other medics, and they had 6 on each side with these air guns. So as you walked, you kept on walking. You didn't stop. You were a moving target for these medics as they shot this injection into your arm. So you could get 2 or 3 injections in the exact same spot theoretically, and not good. So glad we had an 8-hour flight over to Germany before we continued on our mission, because that gave us a little bit of time to get where we could at least use a little bit of our arms. But let me see here. Okay. It talks about other ways to protect against thyroid damage. If you read the studies, the Russians used apopectin as a preventive and curative treatment for radiation sickness after Chernobyl. So that they say that was pretty good to use. I don't know how many of us keep apopectin around, but one of the main things you want to do is you want to keep any radioactive fallout from getting inside of your body. So make sure as soon as you can, cover yourself. That's why that cheapo personal protective equipment list that I did a video on here a little while ago. Cheapo poncho, goggles, even an N95 mask if you can't get the mask from someplace like Mira Safety, or just get yourself a good quality mask, and then gloves, boots. The main thing is you want to keep that stuff from getting inside your body, inside your ears, inside your mouth, nose. Don't inhale it. If you get it inside your lungs, you can't get rid of it. You're going to die. That's all there is to it. So let me see here. I am. I have a case of the burps. I am fairly confident, Pat, that people know their own. Excuse me. People know their own individual needs, and so my recommendation is consider what your individual needs are. Today, when I went to get my allergy shots, I was talking to the nurse. And I said, "Hey, I need refills on these." And she said, "Well, you got to make an appointment with the pulmonologist because we can't do that. We can do the other one. We can refill this one, but these two, you got to have a pulmonologist to refill those." She says, "And by the way, talk to them because there are some other medications that are newer that might be better for you. So talk to them about those." But so make sure you're up on all your prescriptions. I would recommend you get these. If they're as old as mine are, that's Jace and Contingency Medical. Remember that the doxycycline in there can become poisonous after its expiration date. So make sure you keep those. Don't let those get older than a year before you renew those and replace those. Most of the others just lose their potency over time. Doxycycline, I understand, can become toxic if you allow it to expire. So be very, very cautious about that. Consult with a pharmacist, okay, or your physician on those. When I go for my annual physical day after tomorrow, both of those go into a bag and go into to my doctor when I talk to him about all this as well. And I'm going to have him take a look at everything and make sure that I'm up to date on everything. So, I have heard that, and we're talking about the booster as well. I have heard that. The one that I got that is a lifetime protection was the rabies preventive prophylactic vaccine. So, but I tell you, that's not a fun vaccine. That was 4 injections that I had because I was spelunking at the time. I was cave exploring. And so, a lot of bats in caves. And so they wanted us to be protected against that as we were doing the surveying inside this was at Carlsbad Caverns, as a matter of fact. And so because we were down there with all the bats, we had to have the preventive rabies vaccination. And which beats that series of 14, 4 before instead of 14 after. I think I'll go for the 4 before. Yes, make sure your pets are up to date. Absolutely. And I've heard about that there is a respiratory ailment going out among both canines and felines. So it's also in the cats. So potassium iodide protects you only against thyroid. What it does is it saturates your thyroid so that no other radioactive elements can go into and affect your thyroid. The only thing that potassium iodide protects is your thyroid gland. So that protects you against thyroid cancer. But your thyroid is the one that absorbs radioactivity first, so before all the others. So, it's not that there is no magic pill you can take that's going to protect you from radioactivity. You can protect your thyroid. That's about it. The rest of it's just going to be, what we talked about back in chapter 1, time, distance, and space or mass. So, staying away, as far away from radioactivity as possible, having as much of an absorptive material between you and the radioactive fallout or radioactive materials, and making sure that there's plenty of that so that there's distance. So those are the 3 factors: time, distance, and mass. And those are going to be your 3 major protections against radioactive fallout. Potassium iodide can protect your thyroid. Then, of course, the personal protective equipment, making sure you don't have any of that radioactive fallout in contact with your body, because then you don't. And when you wipe it off, so in my backyard, right here, I have a covered patio. So I have it marked out. There's a path, and I'm going to take some tarps I have out in the backyard. They're all set, ready to go. All I have to do is hang them. They're hanging from the inside of the rafters, okay, so that there's a protective thing so the dust will hit the rafters and then fall down on the outside of those tarps. Then there's an entrance point. And at that entrance point, we're going to have you take off your clothes. and you take off your outer clothes, and that's going to be, those things are going to be thrown away in a bucket outside of my patio. Then the next step is you're going to go through another curtain. You're going to go into a second area where you're going to take off your inner clothing. Then you're going to go to a third protective area where I have one of those camp showers, those 3.5-gallon camp showers, and you're just going to rinse your body. You're not going to wash. You just want to rinse, because if you scrub, then you have the opportunity to actually embed some of those radioactive particles into your skin. You don't want to do that. You just want to rinse them off, let them rinse off. That goes into an area off the patio where the water will accumulate. Now you're wet. You go over to a drying station, then you come inside the house naked, and there will be clothes inside for you inside the house. So that's kind of our method here of, if we are exposed to radioactive fallout, how we're going to come inside of our house. Recommend that you have some sort of a system set up where you don't wear clothing inside your house that is going to be contaminated with radioactive fallout. Okay. Same thing going into a shelter. Most shelters will have a decontamination or mud room where you're going to disrobe. You're also going to shower, and then you're going to go into it. More than likely, you're going to go into the shower naked so that you can then assure yourself you aren't taking any radioactive fallout into the shower with you. Let me see. Where are we? So Pat's saying Bear Independence has and we'll see what she has to say about to finish that up. So that kind of finishes us up on those two chapters. Next week, same time, same place, we will be discussing expedient shelter furnishings and improvised clothing and protective items. So, when we get into those improvised clothing and protective items, that's going to kind of be like the PPE. I will grab one of my PPE bags out of either the pickup or the out of either the pickup or out of Helen's car, because I have 4 in each. We have 4 seats, so I have 4 PPEs that I've built. I'll bring those in next week, and we'll talk about those, how you can build your own little PPE to keep in your vehicle so that if there is radioactive fallout, you can keep the vast majority of it from having direct contact with your body. So beard, Theoxis is asking beard. That's the main reason I shaved off my beard. Is it's now getting to the point to where I was at that point in my life where I said, you know what, I don't need to have any facial hair, because facial hair will obstruct a good seal of a mask. Same thing with an N95. It's just going to go through all those hair. So that's number one reason why I shaved my beard off, is because I believe that I'm going to have to be wearing a mask of some sort here in the very near future, whether it be because of another outbreak of the cough, or whether it be because I need a good mask or fallout or whatever. Okay, I just wanted to. I said, safety is better than vanity. Plus, my wife says it makes me look 15 years younger. Stray Kitten, go ahead. What is your question? Uh, one of the things I really, really admire about Bear Independence, if you don't watch his, you got a great channel. He has some great first aid kits that he sells. I forget the name of his company, but he does some great first aid work. One of the things I love most about him is I am a big fan of Matthew chapters 24 and 25. I'm also a big fan of second chapter of James, particularly verses 14 through 24. And remember that Jesus said, unless you do it to the least of my people, that you have done unto me. And James 2, verse 24 says, faith without works is dead, being alone. So Bear goes out and he helps people in disasters, tornadoes, mudslides, floods. He is out there doing the work that we have been called to do. and helping people who are in need of assistance, and out there spreading the word um, by his actions, by what he's doing to help people through some horrendous experiences. So that's one of the things I really, really, totally admire about Bear. He was joined, as a matter of fact, on one of those I saw by Jason, the Angry Prepper. So really good. Um, and yes, he does. He does some great training on first aid and treatment. Another good one is uh, Patriot Nurse. Forget her name. I think it's Patriot Nurse. Uh, and she goes around the country doing classes. But I will tell you, a lot of this you can get for free. If you have a CERT group, and that's the Community Emergency Response Team, there's FEMA sponsored, and usually you'll have through your local emergency management department, sheriff's department, hospital, somebody will have a CERT group. And if not, Red Cross also gives good training classes out in the local area that are very cost effective. So, and the one thing I don't like about doing it over the web webinars is you don't get the practical experience. The best class I ever took was a FEMA class through CERT, and it was called Stop the Bleed. And they had these dummies in, and they actually had a pump that replicated an arterial bleed. And so we were in an area. There are certain areas like in the armpit or somewhere like that, or in the abdomen, chest, where you can't put a tourniquet on to stop the bleed. So what you want to do is you want to put pressure on that femoral, on that arterial bleed. And so you pack the wound with gauze. And so they had tubes that were basically the same consistency as an artery, and they pumping blood out. And so you got to go in there and push down on that artery and then keep stuffing more gauze in there until you basically stop the hemorrhaging. And so you can't do that on YouTube. The idea of being able to go in and feel inside a wound where that gushing is coming from is such an experience. I mean, it's so critical. If you get a chance, the name of the class is called Stop the Bleed. Very, very important class. I think everybody needs to have. Okay. Firefighter Tim Brown got run down sick doing 9/11 recovery cleanup in Air Force. Medic gave him orange pills and told him to shower constantly and drink lots of water. Oh, anthrax pills. Wow. Wow. I'll have to check into that. I don't know anything about it, but you put me on a mission now to find out something that I didn't know anything about in the past, and love learning new stuff. Tim Brown. Thank you. Thank you for that info, Stray Kitten. Appreciate it. I was I worked for that computer company that rhymes with hell, and their office in Tokyo was just out off of Yebasu Gardens, and Yebasu is the Yebasu train station, Yebasu Garden. That was one of the largest beer breweries in Tokyo. So you've got Yebasu Garden, the Yebasu Brewery. You've got the Westin Tokyo, and then I was able to watch Disneyland fireworks out of my window at night. But I had to walk past the Yebasu metro station, which is where they had that attack by the terrorists there with anthrax, and I was there just shortly after that happened. Take care, Creative Redundancy. Have a great evening. I'll look it up. That's not a problem. like having good information. That's like the pectin story from the Soviets. You're not going to read that in any medical journals, I don't think, but it's good information to have. That they were using that as a treatment afterwards. So it's always interesting to find stuff like that. I think, when we don't have doctors and emergency rooms and nurses and PAs and all these other fantastically trained people, we're going to have to resort to some homeopathic solutions. And, the way I look at it is, if there's no medical help available, then homeopathic self-treatment is better than nothing. And I will tell you, when I was in Korea to do the counterterrorist stuff for the Seoul Olympics in 1988, I fell down the stairs, the marble stairs, rainstorm. I slipped, fell down the stairs, broke my ankle, played 9 holes of golf on a broken ankle with the commanding general of the Korean CIA. And he sent me to his personal doctor because he knew my ankle was broken. And he gave me a Korean commendation medal for playing golf for 9 holes on a broken ankle. But anyhow, he sent me to his private physician, who was an acupuncturist. Well, this was right when we had all that needles and everything, needle sticks, all that kinds of stuff about, I forget what it was. But anyhow, scared stiff of needles and all that kinds of stuff. But I had an acupuncturist go to work on my ankle, and within 15 minutes there was no pain, no swelling. I mean, the acupuncturist knew what he was doing. No pain, no swelling. That convinced me that alternative forms of medicine are valid. And then he said, okay, now your ankle's, I've taken care of the swelling and the pain. Your ankle's broken. Go see a Western doctor, get an X-ray, get it set and put in a cast. And so they took me to Yongsan, which was the headquarters for U.S. Army Korea. And I went to the hospital there, got an X-ray. Sure, it was broken. Didn't need to be set, but they put me in a cast, and off I went. So the rest of my time in Korea, I was on a cast with a broken ankle. And that was about another 4 or 5 weeks. Okay, so we have come to that time in the evening where it's time to depart with each other. So as the Lord instructed to Moses, this is how you shall bless the Israelites, say unto them. And so I'm saying unto you, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So remember, we've got to coalesce, and we do that so fantastically here on this channel. Thank you so much for all of you for being kind, polite, respectful, and for sharing your information, and even for correcting me sometimes when I make a boo-boo. So thank you so much for the fact that we have such a great community, that you do share, respect, are kind and polite to each other. I can't tell you how important that is, because, when it comes down to it, we are all we have. So we've got to take care of each other. So thank you for being here. We're going to come through this together. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.